vaccinated, our economy safely reopened, and our kids back in school are simply too important to risk. He says, join us at stoptherepublicanrecall.com. So there you're seeing just a mounting effort there from Governor Newsom to fight back on this recall, even though 2 million signatures have been garnered already. Well, Gavin Newsom established a political committee today to begin raising money to defend his seat in a potential recall election. The strongest acknowledgement to date that he expects to be on the ballot this year. The Democrats' new fundraising arm could soon send a powerful message to his possible rivals. And one of those possible rivals is former San Diego Mayor and Republican Gavin Faulconer. My colleague Daytona Everett spoke to him about all things California and this recall effort right now as it passes the 2 million signature threshold. Remember, those signatures, though, still need to be validated by the California Secretary of State's office. But let's listen into this conversation right now.
You're watching News Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. I'm joined now by Gavin Faulconer. He is most known for being the mayor of San Diego, but he's also running for governor of California as the Republican candidate. Kevin, thanks for being with us again here on News Now.
Daytona, great to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
So California continues to be in national headlines for a series of reasons. Most recently, we've been hearing a lot about your competitor, I guess you could say, Governor Newsom right now, a recall effort underway. I just want to start off pretty general and ask you what your thoughts are so far.
Well, the recall is going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind, as we've seen just really the tremendous momentum that builds week by week here in California. The threshold to qualify for the recall is 1.5 million signatures. The recall effort has already surpassed 2 million signatures. And I think that gives you a sense of really the rising anger and frustration here in California with the job that the governor is doing, or should I say isn't doing. And I'll also tell you, Daytona, it's across the spectrum. It's Republicans, Democrats, it's independents, all folks that are ready for a change at the top here in California, not just for the starts and stops of the pandemic, but the fact of the matter is, for example, that our public schools are still not open in California, where that's happening for the rest of the country. So folks are ready for a change at the top in California, and I'm looking forward to be a big part of that change.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on the fact that there's so much money being invested in this, because just recently there has been like a stop the recall effort. Cory Booker coming out today saying, my friend Governor Newsom has been a leader throughout this crisis. Now an unpopular partisan recall will waste taxpayer dollars when they're needed most. Stop the recall. But California Democrats have announced that they are putting in $250,000, contributing that to the fight against the recall for Governor Newsom. So it seems like there's quite a bit of money that's being invested in this.
Well, it's not going to be enough, I can tell you that, because as I mentioned earlier, the signatures are going to be turned in this week, and they've already passed the threshold. And this is a bipartisan effort. I mean, it's really been growing, particularly over the last several months. And so I think that, sure, you're going to have a lot of folks going to try to change this dynamic, but it's too late. And it's too late because Californians and families whose kids aren't back at school, families whose small businesses have been open and shut sometimes 4 and 5 different times because of the changing metrics that were not based on science here in California. So I think, again, this is why this recall has grown in momentum, and you can feel it on the streets out there as folks are signing the petition. And absolutely, it's going to happen this week.
So it's easy when you're not in the position to say what this person is doing wrong and how they could be doing it differently. If you were in his position, which I know that you want to be, what would you be doing differently than what he has done over an unprecedented time that we can all kind of agree on?
Well, it has been unprecedented, and it's a fair question. And I've been very outspoken about what the state should be doing. And in the fact that when I was mayor, very vocal, and I just finished up my second term a couple of months ago, very vocal about the need to protect lives and also livelihoods. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that out of this administration in California. The fact is, I mentioned earlier that the metrics have been changed, the goalposts moved so many different times. The fact that for a while we shut down outdoor dining in California with absolutely no metrics, that was based on science and the transmission of COVID-19 in an outdoor setting. The fact that also some months back, our governor came out and he shut down outdoor playgrounds for families and kids and then changed his mind a week later because he got so much pushback. As I said, that the fact that our public schools are still not open. Private schools are open in California where teachers are safely teaching and kids are safely learning. But yet, because those schools report to parents, and yet the schools that ultimately report to Gavin Newsom, our public schools, are not open. It's unexcusable. There's absolutely no reason why that should be the case. And I say that not just as a candidate for governor, but as a father with 2 kids in public school who knows, as parents all across the state know, that a computer screen is no substitute for an in-classroom experience.
Well, I mean, in the past couple of weeks, there has been a phased-in approach of reopening things. We are seeing California businesses, restaurants, whatnot, and some school districts finally reopening here. It seems like pretty much coinciding with the same timeline of this recall. Would that be appropriate to say?
Well, it's a coincidence now, isn't it? But look, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've gotten more plans, right, on school reopening lately. But yet the governor came out with a plan at the end of the year and said schools will be open in California by February 1st. Of course, that did not happen. Now we have more plans with a lot of caveats, but why you were seeing parents all across this state, and again, it's bipartisan, of every background, saying, open up our schools now, please. The fact that it hasn't happened, I think, says a lot about the lack of urgency and the lack of leadership that we're seeing out of the governor's office here in California.
If he does fully reopen the schools, though, and reopen California, doesn't that kind of go against the argument of Republicans or people who want to reopen and say that he's not doing that? What if he fully does? Doesn't that counteract the recall effort?
Well, people have been so vocal for a long time. And when we look at the small businesses that have been put out of business because of his lack of action, when we look at schools, again, that still aren't open, and even when they are open, we want them to open. The fact that, this governor has not shown the leadership, has been so slow to actually adapt to the situation. The fact that our vaccine rollout here in California is one of the slowest in the country. Again, no reason for that for the state that prides ourselves on being so entrepreneurial, being so innovative. And so what you have seen in California across the political spectrum is an absolute lack of confidence in this governor who cannot actually do the basics in our state. We haven't even touched on, of course, the issue of homelessness and others. And I think that's why folks have looked around and they've said, we're going to sign this recall petition, and they are ready for a change in California.
So you're saying basically too much damage has been done for him to come back from it?
Oh, I think there's no question in my mind that when the recall qualifies, and it will, and when we have an election at some point this year, Californians are going to go to the polls and they're going to make a change.
Well, let's talk about when all of this is over, whenever that might be. There's this looming deficit economically that every state and nationally we are going to be dealing with it. It's inevitable. So say you do step into that position as governor, how would you tackle that?
Well, first and foremost, great point. And, one of the realities that we have seen here in California, unfortunately, recently, is so many of our great companies leaving our state to go to other states. And you've heard, about some of the largest ones, of course, HB, Oracle, just to name a few, good California companies, great California jobs that are leaving our state to other states. It's time to have a governor that says, we want you here. We want to have a business climate that actually supports California jobs and doesn't take it for granted. Our revenue in our state is from a strong economy. And to be able to not even pick up the phone, as this governor has done with these companies that are leaving our state, to say, what's the reason? What can we do to help? That's the exact wrong approach. I'm going to step in on day one and say, I understand how important it is for us as California to be competitive. And that's what's been sorely lacking from Gavin Newsom.
Interesting. Well, as things continue to ramp up in California, is there anything else that you're going to be watching or is interesting to you?
I'll tell you, Daytona, we're spending a lot as we look to get on the other side of this pandemic, and we will by working together. But there's so many other issues that are facing us here in California. One I will just say briefly that I feel particularly strongly and passionately about is the issue of homelessness, which before COVID was the #1 issue in any city of any size in California. We took dramatic action, and I was mayor of San Diego, the only big city to actually reduce homelessness by double digits. And unfortunately, what we see happening in virtually every city of any size in California is homelessness growing by double digits. We need to take significant action now, and that is one of the things that I'm going to focus on day one when I'm governor of this great state.
And last question for you. If you were sitting down face to face with Governor Newsom, what would you say? What would be your words to him?
What you and I have just been talking about, which is show the leadership, show the urgency, make the change, open up our schools now. Don't be, what we have seen is, continued inaction. It is time for leadership. That's what Californians are seeing. That's why they're signing these recall petitions. It's time for a change. And as I said earlier, I'm looking forward to doing that. Somebody who has won twice as mayor in San Diego, somebody who not just gets Republicans, Democrats, and independents. That's how you win in California. You win by addition. And so we're a campaign that is off to a strong start. It's going to be a campaign that's going to focus on winning on the issues that Californians care about.
All right, well, definitely will be interesting to watch. We'll be following it here on News Now. Kevin Faulconer coming out of California for us. Thanks for being with us.